You're not waking up gently. You're plunging into a spiritual crisis that could shatter everything. Carl Jung understood this better than anyone, knowing why so few emerge intact. It's not about lacking strength. It's about following a flawed guide through the chaos. That overwhelming anxiety, the crushing loneliness, the sense that your mind is unraveling while the world carries on unchanged. Those aren't signs of failure. They're the raw essence of true awakening. Jung described it as the night sea voyage, a plunge into depths so profound and destructive that it dismantles every illusion of who you believed yourself to be. Faced with this, most souls take one of three desperate paths. They flee back into oblivion, they shatter under the weight and cease to function, or they craft a phony enlightened facade, even more deceptive than the mask they shed. Stick with me as I reveal what Jung uncovered about the perils of this path, the most treacherous odyssey the human spirit can endure. By the time we're done, you'll grasp the three deadly pitfalls that claim most seekers, and Jung's precise methods to traverse them without sacrificing your essence or your grip on reality. He didn't just theorize, he endured it firsthand. At 38, thriving in his profession, admired by peers, Jung chose to step into the abyss of insanity. Over 6 grueling years, he chronicled hallucinations so vivid, voices so commanding, and ordeals so cataclysmic that he confessed, "I teetered on the edge of psychosis." Visions that would have confined others to asylums. Rivers of blood engulfing Europe, the undead rising, dialogues with archetypes from the psyche's hidden realms. His loved ones feared he'd gone mad forever. His professional circle turned away. He risked losing it all. Yet from that abyss, he forged a blueprint that could preserve not just your spiritual path, but your very mental stability. Jung's revelation flips the script on everything you've heard. Awakening isn't the blissful ascent peddled by modern mystics. It's not about soaring into radiance or rising above your human flaws. It's not achieving serenity, illumination, or superiority. It's the ruthless demolition of every falsehood you've clung to for sanity's sake. Jung realized we all rely on deceptions to navigate life. Our crafted identities, our displaced fears, our cozy denial. These aren't weaknesses. They're shields for the mind, and awakening rips them apart. Not with tenderness or ethereal glow, but with a ferocity that can sever ties to everyday existence. Your inner world resists this unveiling fiercely, deploying defenses you never knew were yours, all in the name of self-preservation. Jung pinpointed 3 lethal mechanisms the psyche uses to sabotage the process. 3 hidden explosives that ignite when truth draws near. Without recognizing them and understanding their mechanics, survival is unlikely. The initial one is already stirring within you. You might not see it, because it masquerades as enlightenment itself, cloaked in your noblest dreams while eroding the core of your being. Jung observed this snare undo his brightest cases. Those who appeared to surge ahead often crashed the hardest. You believe you're evolving spiritually, but in truth, you're courting peril. Jung's insight dismantles every sacred doctrine. The brighter you shine, the deeper your shadow lengthens, not poetically, but in tangible mental terms. Each session of contemplation, every ritual, every effort to elevate your energy, if unpaired with a dive into the obscured self, isn't progress. It's inflation, primed for detonation. Let me paint the picture of what's unfolding in your depths. Throughout your existence, you've exiled fragments of your soul into obscurity. Fury deemed intolerable, greed labeled disgraceful, primal desires too frightening, even ecstasy too exposed. You've entombed them so thoroughly they've vanished from memory, constructing a self-image so persuasive it fooled even you. But Jung unearthed a chilling truth. The shadow harbors not just the discarded, but the antithesis of all you've embraced. If kindness defines you, cruelty lurks below. If wisdom is your badge, folly waits in the wings. If order is your anchor, anarchy simmers. Awakening ignites, and rather than fading, the shadow surges forth. Jung witnessed a devotee, the epitome of a serene guide, unflappable, radiating affection, immersed in hours of stillness. Then the nightmares invaded, brutality, forbidden lusts, homicidal fury. She feared corruption had taken hold. Jung delivered the verdict that unraveled her. This isn't descent into darkness. It's the path to completeness. And completeness demands every forsaken piece. She couldn't bear it, intensifying her practices, invoking rituals to banish the gloom. Within 2 years, total breakdown. Why? Because, and this reshapes your entire perspective, the shadow isn't an adversary. Jung deemed it the cradle of invention. It cradles every sliver of strength you've denied, every thread of genuineness you've spurned, every surge of vitality judged unfit. Through his own confrontations, Jung encountered Philemon, a timeless sage dwelling in his subconscious. But accessing that wisdom required facing his violent imaginings. Scenes of slaughter, ruin, turmoil. He didn't flee. He illustrated them, inscribed them, conversed with them. In that immersion, he discovered not malevolence, but boundless creative energy. Those who endure don't battle the shadow. They nourish it, inquiring, "What hidden wisdom do you bear that I've been too fragile to embrace?" Yet here's the twisted irony. Spiritual circles despise the shadow. They'll urge you to illuminate it away, surpass it, resonate beyond it. That's not elevation. It's evasion in holy guise. It breeds what Jung termed the enlightened offender. Someone so severed from their depths that it manifests wildly. Recall every guru ensnared in controversy. They didn't tumble from purity. They ignored integration, letting the shadow fester unseen, poised to obliterate their facade of holiness. Jung chronicled numerous examples. A recluse meditating endlessly, haunted by savage urges toward his brethren. A nurturer espousing boundless compassion, dreaming of tormenting those she aided. A scribe of harmony gripped by fury so fierce it erased memory. None were turning wicked. They were confronting the facets spirituality had helped them dodge. Your shadow is rising now. That simmering wrath is years of bottled ire. That raw sensuality is vitality reclaiming its throne. That ruinous impulse is your might seeking reunion. Most can't endure this revelation. They either clamp down tighter, weaponizing faith against their own nature, or they erupt outward, ravaging their world in blind shadow takeover. Jung's approach was groundbreaking. Picture yourself standing at the edge of your own mind, staring into a chasm where the parts of you you've long ignored are waiting. Jung didn't just suggest you peek at this shadow. He urged you to step into its presence, to speak with it, to let it reveal its face and tell its tale. Not to merge with its darkness, but to understand its pulse, to harness its raw energy before it seizes you in secret. Those who make it through this storm don't recoil from the shadow's glare. They learn to move with it, to sway with the very force they've spent a lifetime dodging. They come to see the shadow isn't out to ruin them. It's yearning to make them whole. Jung's words echo here. He'd rather embrace his entirety than cling to being good. But even if you dare to dance with your shadow, a fiercer trial looms. Everyone talks about slaying the ego like it's the ultimate prize, but Jung saw through that illusion. He watched people chase ego death, only to find themselves adrift, not enlightened, but untethered from reality itself. The ego isn't your foe. It's the vessel that holds you together. Strip it away and you don't rise above the world. You lose your grip on it. You don't become transcendent. You become unmoored, unable to function. Here's where it gets treacherous. As awakening dawns, your ego doesn't just fade. It lashes out, cunning and ruthless. Jung called this the reality of the psyche. Your ego has been steering your life, convinced it's the captain. Then awakening reveals the truth. It's barely a deckhand. Vast, untamed forces in your unconscious dwarf it. And when that truth hits, the ego panics. But it's clever, it doesn't fight head-on. It sneaks in, hijacking your spiritual breakthroughs, claiming them as its own. I had the vision, it boasts. I am chosen. I am awake. Jung saw this delusion wreck lives. A genuine brush with the divine would spark synchronicities, vivid insights, and the ego would pounce, proclaiming, I am godly. This is spiritual inflation, more dangerous than staying asleep. Jung worked with a man in his early 40s, a sharp businessman whose world began to align in uncanny ways. Every thought seemed to shape reality. Every wish came true. He believed he'd unlocked the universe's secrets, destined to lead humanity into a new era. His ego had seized a true spiritual opening and twisted it into a god complex. Within months, he'd abandoned his family, left his career, and launched a movement. A year later, he was homeless, convinced he alone saw through a simulated reality. For 3 years, Jung helped him untangle the divine truths he'd touched from the ego's lies that inflated them. Because when your ego cloaks itself in spiritual garb, you're not just lost, you're lost while believing you've arrived. You're not just ego-driven. You're driven by an ego draped in divine authority, preaching awakening while lulling others into slumber. Jung put it starkly, the ego inflates when it claims the treasures of the collective unconscious. Every time you think, I'm awake, and they're not, that's the ego swelling. Every surge of spiritual superiority, every certainty you hold the truth, that's the ego tightening its grip. It doesn't vanish in awakening. It transforms into something slicker, more seductive, more destructive. Jung saw seekers who seemed to glow with progress, only to spiral into messianic delusions, convinced they were prophets destined to save the world. Within years, their lives crumbled, followers scattered, requiring years of care to regain their footing. The signs were clear, Jung noted. They stopped doubting themselves, grew certain of every answer, bristled at critique. They saw omens everywhere, proof of their uniqueness. They believed their thoughts bent reality, that they transcended human limits, called to awaken the masses. They mistook the messenger for the message, believing the divine flowing through them made them divine. Those who endure, Jung taught, don't destroy the ego, they humble it. They teach it its role. Not the master, but the servant. Not the source, but the vessel. Not the signal, but the radio carrying it. His method was relentless self-scrutiny. Feel special? Ask, what ancient energy am I mistaking for myself? Feel chosen? Question, chosen by what hidden part of me? Feel awake? Probe, what still sleeps within? Yet even this clarity ushers in a new peril. Once your ego accepts its lesser role, you're cast into what Jung called the void. A liminal space with no old self, no new self, just an endless free fall through the psyche's expanse. Most grab the nearest belief to halt the descent, any anchor to stop the vertigo. That's how cults take root, how rigid dogmas grow, how a journey toward freedom becomes a cage. They swap one rigid self for another, often even more unyielding than the one they escaped. But dodge that snare, and there's still a final ordeal that crushes nearly all who reach it. You've weathered the shadow's fury, sidestepped the ego's swelling pride. You believe you've crossed the threshold. Then comes the return to everyday existence, and that's the breaker of spirits. Jung termed it the returned hero's dilemma. In ancient tales, the adventurer plunges into the unknown, claims a prize, and comes back to offer it. But Jung spotted what the legends gloss over. The community often turns on the hero, not with blades, but with subtle psychic wounds. Your transformation holds up a mirror to their slumber. Your raw truth unmasks their deceptions. Your profound presence lays bare their shallowness. They don't crave your wakefulness. They yearn for your return to the familiar haze where you're tame, expected, controllable. Jung observed his clients evolve profoundly, only to face families that methodically unraveled their progress. Not out of spite, but from deep-seated instinct. Through layers of guilt. You've shifted so much, I hardly know you. Through sly control. I miss the person you were. Through distance. Do you think you're above us now? He chronicled a woman, a sharp lawyer and devoted mother, who delved deep into her core, weaving her shadow into wholeness, awakening to her true essence. Upon stepping back into her world, the backlash was stealthy warfare. Her partner grew uneasy with her evolution. Her kids turned needy and insistent. Her parents doubted her stability. Meals morphed into arenas of unspoken accusations, talks into tugs pulling her backward. Remember how carefree you used to be? Her husband would sigh. Are you all right? You don't seem yourself. Her mother would probe. Friends teased. Oh, look who's all enlightened these days. Every bond became a skirmish. hold your ground and risk isolation, or dim your light and forfeit your soul. Most buckle under this strain, either cutting ties to wander as outcasts of the spirit or dimming their flame to fit in, prizing acceptance over authenticity. But peel back the layers, and you'll see the deeper shift. Your awakening hasn't just remade you. It's altered your very essence, your vibrational hum. You're resonating on a wavelength that clashes with the dormant masses, sparking not just emotional discord, but genuine, bodily torment in the psyche. Jung named this the participation mystique, the invisible psychic web that ties kin and circles together in shared oblivion. Break free through true growth, and the group feels it as desertion, as treachery, as a kind of demise. And they're not mistaken. The version of you woven into their collective dream has vanished, and they're grieving that loss while lashing at your rebirth. Lingering among the unaware post-awakening is like a constant screech echoing in your mind. Each hollow exchange, every superficial encounter, each unwitting jab, it stings with real intensity. Jung lived this agony himself. After his own emergence, mundane mingling became excruciating, not from arrogance, but from the clarity he couldn't switch off. Interactions demanded he feign ignorance. Relationships required him to deny his vision. He described evenings at gatherings where shadows danced unseen. A host's bottled fury aimed at his spouse, her veiled allure toward a visitor, the visitor's echo of his mother cast onto the hostess, all crystal clear to him, hidden from them. He'd observe this subconscious theater unfold. Words trapped on his tongue. Knowing truth would shred the fragile social weave. So the enlightened retreat, not from disdain but survival. They can't erase the sights they've witnessed, can't unlearn the depths they've plumbed, can't mimic blindness without self-betrayal. This is the supreme challenge. Can you remain vigilant in a world of dreams? Can you cling to your reality amid illusions? Can you sustain your rhythm in a storm of noise? Jung's answer cut to the core. Deliberate engagement. Jung learned to navigate the unconscious world with precision, dipping into its chaos briefly, then retreating to recharge, carving out what he called temenos. Sacred havens where his awareness could breathe freely, untainted by the world's slumber. His tower at Bollingen wasn't a hideout. It was a lifeline for his psyche. Most can't strike this balance. They either vanish entirely, becoming recluses, lost to addiction, or fading into obscurity, or they don a false enlightened mask, play-acting awakening while their soul withers inside. Those who endure master what Jung called holding the tension of opposites, fully awake yet fully present, seeing the world's illusions without judgment, embodying consciousness with compassion. They develop what he named the transcendent function, a bridge between realms, not preaching their truth but living it so vividly that it quietly invites others to stir from their sleep. But Jung's most piercing revelation cuts deeper. Awakening isn't a moment. It's a lifelong surrender to dissolution. Every dawn brings the death of another certainty. Every week dismantles another self. Every month unearths a darker shadow. Every year demands you unravel yet another ego construct. Even in his 80s, Jung was still unraveling, still facing hidden shadows, still piercing his own illusions, still discovering new depths. Near the end, he dreamed he was a novice again, a seeker starting from scratch. After a lifetime as the great psychologist, his unconscious whispered, "You know nothing. This is the cost of true consciousness. An eternal beginner's mind, endlessly dying, endlessly reborn, forever realizing you're not who you thought." Most can't bear it. They crave a finish line, a moment of arrival, a final understanding. Jung told of a patient who, after 7 years of profound growth, integrating vast shadows and touching real awareness, asked in despair, "When does it end? When am I whole?" His answer shattered and freed her. "Never. The unconscious is boundless. You're chasing infinity. How do you finish the infinite? Consciousness isn't a place you reach. It's a spiral without end. Those who thrive don't just endure this, they embrace it, falling in love with the rhythm of their own undoing. Not in gloom, but in clarity, seeing every death as a birth, every collapse as a beginning, every loss as an unveiling. Jung found this alchemy creates a rare state, what he called the union of opposites, not choosing light over shadow, but but holding both. Not favoring awareness over oblivion, but weaving them together. Not exalting spirit above flesh, but fusing them into one. This isn't a theory. It's a transformation that rewires your entire being. The self that began this journey can't survive it, wasn't built to, wasn't meant to. What rises in its place isn't superior or saintly, but raw, whole, fiercely human. Jung called it individuation, becoming the truth of who you were before the world shaped you otherwise. Not escaping your humanity, but diving into it, fully awake. This isn't the awakening peddled in spiritual circles. It's not endless bliss, it's conscious struggle. It's not calm, it's deliberate tension. It's not a destination, it's an unending path. Jung's own descent distilled this truth. The privilege of a lifetime is to uncover your true self, but that self embraces all you reject. The killer and the healer, the sage and the fool, the divine and the primal, woven consciously into one impossible, authentic whole. That's why so few endure. They cling to surviving as their old self while reaching for their true one. An impossible split. They want the prize without the plunge, the insight without the scar, the rebirth without the cross. If Jung were here, he'd look you in the eye and say, stop fighting to preserve yourself through this awakening. Let it tear you apart, fully, willingly, with every fiber of your being. Let the shadow surge, then weave it into your soul. Let the ego thrash, then teach it its place. Let the return wound you, then rebuild from the truth. Embrace the deaths that come, not once, but daily, eternally. This awakening isn't here to polish you. It's here to reveal you, the real you, buried beneath every mask, every role, every spiritual cloak you still hold tight. Most souls never make it through their spiritual awakening because they're chasing an impossible dream. Transformation without sacrifice, enlightenment without ruin, awareness while clutching the soft haze of oblivion. It's a futile grasp. Jung endured because he saw the truth. You don't survive awakening. You surrender to it so fully that what rises from the ashes no longer clings to survival. It craves only to live its truth. Those tremors shaking your core aren't your downfall. They're your medicine. That shattering collapse isn't defeat. It's your breakthrough wearing a mask. The unraveling of everything you know isn't your end. It's your dawn. But only if you stop fighting to hold yourself together and instead lean into the transformation. Only if you trade the lure of ease for the pursuit of what's real. Only if you let go of wanting to shine as special and embrace the raw, unfiltered truth of who you are. If this resonates, if it's shedding light on the storm of your awakening, hit subscribe. You're not losing your mind, you're finding your sanity. The world might call it madness, so accustomed to slumber. The question isn't whether you'll survive this awakening. It's whether you'll let it finish what it started, forging you anew.